This is the Jim Nog Pod with Jim Noguera. It is the Jim Nog Pod with Jim Noguera.
Most interested man
It is the
in the
Jim
world.
Nog Pod
Interested,
with Jim Noguera.
the most interested man
Jim
in the
Nog
world.
Pod.
Interested,
It is the Jim
interested.
in the world.
This is James Noguera, aka Jim Nog. On this episode, Stephanie Gaitán. Stephanie is a writer, educator, and mother from the Bronx. Her work has been featured in 433 Magazine, Stone of Madness Press, Voyage YA, Palabritas, and forthcoming La Libreta. You can find her on Twitter at Gaitán Writes. Gaitán is Gaitan, and on Instagram at Jupiter Gaitán. We had a long conversation, which I managed to edit down to 2 hours. We discussed the value of writing workshops and the MFA experience, Stephanie's background, her passions. We talk a bit about depression, the pros and cons of social media on society, our personal politics, socialism versus capitalism, UBI, science fiction series that have influenced us, mixed identity, post-colonialism, the writing process, and much more. She also reads from an upcoming work titled Hood Phantom. And now, Stephanie Gaitán. Hey, everybody. This is Jim, and I'm joined here with Stephanie. How about you introduce yourself? You talk a little bit about you for people who don't know who you are, and just like highlight what you think people should know about you.
Okay, well, no one knows who I am. I graduated from City College with a degree in creative writing. I'm a writer, poetry, fiction, nonfiction, mother, from the Bronx, but currently living in the Heights. Yeah.
Cool. So, like, I think we first, I guess, ran into each other virtually anyway, is through, I think it was a conference, a virtual conference. And you were there, and then we followed each other on social media. And I thought you were interesting. You are passionate about creative writing, like I am, and you are part of a magazine. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so this magazine is called 433. It started during the pandemic. So in 2020, we launched it, I believe, May 1st. Editor-in-chief is Stuart Sinclair. He's a former professor of mine. He was my fiction professor. Well, lecturer. Hates being called a professor because he's not actually a professor. And so he reached out. He said, are you interested in jumping in on this project? And I was like, okay, cool. And we did a lot of the work, and we got close, and we just, he calls me his, right hand or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm in charge of creative direction now, social media, and some editing. Mm. And it just started with John Cage's 433, which was silence for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And wow. It was born of that. Of all the silences during the pandemic, being home, being in your head, reflecting on within 4 minutes and 33 seconds, and then writing about it. But it expanded into just submitting anything for the most part.
Okay. And it's open to the general public?
Yeah, to anyone.
Cool. Okay, great. So for anybody interested in like submitting to that magazine, what do you guys look for?
Nonfiction, fiction, art, photography, and I feel like I'm forgetting something.
Sure. Some other things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but fiction, poetry.
Poetry is the one I'm forgetting. But it's because we get so much poetry. So we've been trying to push for other types of submissions.
I see. So it's a lot. Okay. So a little heavy on poetry. So you're looking for some other stuff
Yeah,
too.
poetry is really popular now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it tends to be shorter and more compact, and there are a lot of poetry people in my MFA program. I went to City College, where you got your bachelor's, right?
Yeah.
With a concentration in creative writing.
Yeah.
So it's not a BFA technically.
Yeah.
It's a BA. Cool. What did you like about your creative writing experience? Was it at City College?
I started at Bronx Community College.
Okay.
Yeah, as an English major there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they don't have a creative writing
Had,
thing, right?
Yeah, intro to creative writing. I took it there.
Well, yeah, a course.
Yeah, but not a concentration.
Not
yeah,
a concentration, yeah. That's cool. So, yeah, okay, let's start there. Like, what did you think about the creative writing course you took at BCC? Let's start there, yeah, and then we'll talk about the other ones.
Okay. Melissa Aquino was my professor for Intro to Creative Writing. And then eventually she asked me to, well, we talked a lot, and eventually I got to work with her at Thesis, their literary journal. So, I got to work there. Had to go through we didn't call it the slush, but basically the slush pile. Mm-hmm. Got a lot of submissions, hundreds. I was in charge of organizing the Excel, the master document before it went to printing, handling communication between the editors. So that's kind of where my creative writing journey really began.
Oh, and do you mind, like, what year was this?
2017. It was my last semester.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. I started teaching in 2017 over there, and cool. And I was aware of what was happening. Maybe I saw you before. Yeah, that's possible. Because we do events at Bronx Community College. The Writing Center does mostly with what is it? The Creative Writing Club, and we get together and we do events. We do spoken. What are they called? Poet cafes, and those are a lot of fun. Did you ever show up to one of those?
Probably not.
No.
Yeah, I had a kid. She was a toddler at the time, so it was like go to school, get out of school, go home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are great, and I actually meet some artists there. That's how I met Ibrahim, who was on the podcast before. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's kind of a really interesting. Like, he does poetry, but he's kind of leaning more now toward hip hop, and like he likes J. Cole, and anyway, super interesting guy, and he does some great work. Like, he's passionate about criminal justice reform and so on. But anyway, so yeah, that's interesting. So how much writing did you guys do? Like, what was the actual coursework like? And how did you feel about it?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
I mostly remember I took an independent study after that class with the same professor, Melissa Aquino, for Latino literature, and I remember that more. We read a lot of Puerto Rican stuff because she's Puerto Rican. So I learned a lot about Puerto Rican people and gained more of an appreciation for them, aside from like living in a Bronx surrounded by Puerto Ricans. So
yeah, Well, I mean, we might as well go there. You are not Puerto Rican,
No.
but well, why don't you talk a little bit about your background and then how that relates to the course?
Okay. Well, I'm Dominican from my mom's side and Nicaraguan from my dad's side. There was some Dominican work in the Latino literature course. I believe we read Junit Diaz. Nothing Nicaraguan. It's very hard to come by. But there is an anthology that came out. I forget the name of the press of Central American literature. It's one of the few Central American written in English anthologies that exist in the U.S. Another former professor is in that book, Sheila Maldonado, who we have been working with to publish an interview for 433, the magazine. She's a professor at City College as well.
Oh, I might know who you're talking about. Did she publish a chapbook called, what was it called?
That's What You Get?
No.
Oh, yeah, That's What You Get is in a chapbook. It's just like a full
I think it was One Bedroom Solo.
Oh, yeah.
She did?
Yeah. And I don't think it's a chapbook. I think it's just a book.
A poetry. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. When I was getting my MFA and I was doing a poetry workshop, she came over to lecture, to like kind of guest lecture.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, she was my intermediate creative writing professor. Yeah, she's the one who told me about the Central American anthology. It's by Tia Lucha Press. Yeah.
Tia Lucha Press. Okay, it's good to put that out there. I haven't read it. I've looked at quite a few things. I took a translation course. Among many of the courses, they call them workshops that we took at the City College MFA program. There was one translation course taught by his name is escaping me. I'm so sorry. Unger. I think his last name was Unger. I'm not sure.
David Unger?
Probably.
Isn't he a publishing professor or
yeah,
something like that?
He's big, in there, and he's from Guatemala.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, or his family is from Guatemala. I don't recall exactly, but he introduced us to some works, and I remember since I was translating from the Spanish, I was sort of looking many different things, and I guess I decided to delve into Dominican, artists, and I translated some Dominican poetry. I'm blanking on the names here. I think there was somebody called Jose Luis Vega, who I translated. Maybe I'm messing up on the name, but it was a long time ago. So I really enjoyed the MFA program. And will you pursue an MFA program? What do you think?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
But you want to write though, right?
Yeah. Well, the way I've been pursuing my writing or developing it is lately I've been taking workshops held by other writers. Recently, I just took one by Vanessa Martir, who's she's a great teacher. If you take one of her courses, she's really down to earth. She gets you to she has a lot of required reading, but it's really great stuff to read. Teaches you stuff. We have discussions, and then we have a ton of writing prompts. And this is all in 2 hours.
Wait, but workshops like non-matriculated?
Like 1 day, just 2 hours. You get your required reading a week before, and then you have your workshop in one evening. But she also has one coming up called, what is it called? The Mother Wound. And it's, I think, 5 weeks long. And I'm hoping to take that one.
Cool.
Yeah.
There is one workshop that I
I'm interested in, but it costs quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
There's some scholarships. It's the Odyssey, what is it called? The Odyssey Writing Workshop. It's mostly for like speculative fiction writers, science fiction, fantasy, horror. Yeah, like at some point I really would like to go. But yeah, if you do those workshops, I mean, do you really need the MFA? No, right? And I know that's like a big kind of debate that people have, like if the MFA makes sense. I think one thing is obvious, like you don't need to have an MFA to be a writer.
Yeah.
But what value do you think there is in workshops and having other people look at your work, critique your work, have them be fellow writers? You know, what do you think about that? Like, do you think a writer needs that, or do you think it's just good for a writer to do?
Well, feedback is always useful. You do need feedback because if you're in your head all the time, you only know your perspective, right?
Yes.
Luckily, my best friend is also my writing mentor, so I get feedback from him. And I send stuff to my friends who aren't necessarily writers, but they can give me their feedback as readers. Yeah. And there is another workshop coming up that I wanted to mention. Ariana Brown, she's a poet. She's going to have a poetry workshop coming up. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take it. It starts next week, so I'm really excited about that.
Wait, but this is a free public workshop?
No, you pay for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're paying for these workshops?
Yeah. Vanessa Martin has some free ones. I took one with her that was free first. So then I got to see like her style of teaching and got to know her a little. And I really liked her vibe and everything. So then I decided, hey, let me pay for this one, which wasn't much. It was $22. That was just a one-day one.
That's pretty
good.
But
the mother wound one is $500. So that's something to...
Still cheap considering, you know, when you compare
cheaper
to
than an MFA, yeah.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I like that route a little better. Well, but the MFA can help you get a teaching gig or something like that. It's not the best. Networking, you know, work with magazines and stuff like that.
Yes, writing is a very solitary thing. So to be around other writers, it's always great.
And part of it too is going to readings, and you know, it's an enriching experience, especially if you haven't had that. It's really good for people who don't do what you're doing, right? Which is you're going to like independent workshops, and you know, and you're sort of networking through there. But if you find that you're more like solitary, or you live further away from some of this stuff, then maybe the MFA makes more sense for you.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Cool. So what kind of stuff? What kind of stuff do you write? What do you like to write?
So I like to... Well, one of my favorite things I've ever written is a short fiction story called Neutron Star. It's a little sci-fi depending on how you look at it. Maybe it's supernatural. But yeah, it's about... It got published in, what is it called? Voyage, YA journal. Cool. So apparently had a young adult voice, which I realized that after submitting and getting accepted. And the cool thing is they're a paying magazine. So nice. It was $200. It was the first time I ever got paid for my writing.
Nice.
Yeah, and the story is about, you know, a relationship that didn't work out. And I write it with, you know, it's present and then it's in flashbacks. So the whole story really takes place in one room in one night. But then there are flashbacks that make it seem like it's more days, right? More days have gone by. And the ending is the protagonist, girl named Cielo, she becomes a neutron star at the end. So it was a lot of thinking about what would it look like for a human body, which can't sustain that sort of energy. Mm-hmm. What would it react? How would it become that, right? So I just have to, you know, make up some stuff, right? Like there was static, and I made her hair go up, and she was glowing or something. Right? Yeah. So that was my favorite thing I've ever written. But I also write poetry. A lot of it has to do with growing up poor, the relationship between myself and my mom, which is not the best, and just being in my head as a kid, growing up, escaping through books. Yeah.
Cool. And you have a little bit of a like a science background.
Yeah, I miss it. I entered City College as a physics major. I lasted a year and a half, not because it was so hard I couldn't do it, but because I didn't have the solitude I needed to study, the time, space, privacy, and you need to study like hell when you're a physics major, because you're not just taking physics, you're taking physics, chemistry, calculus.
Yeah.
I got to Calc 2, but then that's when I realized, yeah, my foundation's kind of shaky, so I need to stop doing this because I'm stressed out. And I'm raising a kid at the same time. She was like 3 years old, and she was going, luckily, BCC had a daycare. So she was going to the daycare while I was in class. If it wasn't for that, I may have not finished for much longer.
That daycare has saved some people. I've heard from students, definitely necessary for many, especially inner city community colleges and colleges. So, I just mentioned that because, you're writing about the Neutron Star, like you have some background.
Oh, yeah. Astronomy was my favorite class for a while. Not BCC. I took it in Jersey. I was in Jersey for a little bit.
What school in Jersey?
Union County College, another community college.
Okay.
The story is I got into Manhattan College. It's a private school in the Bronx, which is, people don't really consider it the Bronx, but sometimes. Beautiful campus. My favorite class was religion, believe it or not. Wow. I'm not religious, but my professor was that great. And I dropped out because I was really depressed. In my senior year of high school, I admitted myself into the hospital because I was suicidal. I was having these thoughts. I was self-harming by not using the bathroom when I needed to, not eating. And so I was at Manhattan College. I ended up dropping out because I was depressed and it was expensive. So that's another thing. They don't prepare you for that. They're like, oh, you need like 2 loans and a Parent Plus loan to afford this school. Yeah. I was like, I thought I was good. I thought like I got scholarships or something. I finished high school as salutatorian. Nice. I was supposed to be, Wonderful. I could have been valedictorian if I didn't get depressed.
I hear you.
Yeah, math was my favorite, one of my best subjects when I was in high school. This is getting long. Where was I going?
No, but it's good.
So I ended up in Jersey, stayed at my dad's house because I was like, I need to get away from the city. Too much drama, teenagers. Facebook was horrible. Rumors and stuff. It was too much. It was overwhelming. And then to top it all off, poor living in bad conditions with all my siblings. I have 4 siblings.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was in Jersey, and I ended up being a chemistry major eventually there, I believe. And that's how I took astronomy, because I was like, I'll take chemistry because they don't have physics as a major. And I even visited Rutgers. I was like, I'm going to transfer to Rutgers, and I'm going to be a physics major here, and I'm going to teach physics and make it fun.
Yeah.
For kids, for students. Because I went to Jane Addams High School in the Bronx, and we didn't have shit. Like, I was in all these clubs, but they cut so many. I was on the track club. I was in the track club.
Wow. It
got cut. I was in the voice and music club. It got cut. I wanted to sing eventually, someday, maybe. So it was just... Oh, and that school also had a daycare. High school.
There you go. Helpful for sure.
Somehow I came full circle.
Yeah, thank you. No, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. Wow, I can't believe you did all that stuff. Like you were in all those clubs.
Yeah, I was also in the health club.
Yeah.
And the book club and the Japanese club.
Yeah, and you changed your major a few times.
Yeah. Liberal arts, English, physics, chemistry.
Yeah. Right. And
I was an education major in Jersey at one point.
Nice. So did you? Oh, okay. So you did want to at some point. At some point, you were thinking about teaching,
Yeah.
but mostly, what would you say? Your heart is in writing. Are you passionate about other things?
Well, writing is just, well, it's not just, but it's what I'm probably the best at doing, quote unquote, naturally. It's what I've always been told by teachers growing up. There's a side story. In high school, I had this notebook with colorful lined pages, and I would just write poetry in it every day. My ex-best friend, she got upset because, I guess I broke friend code here, but I was friends with her boyfriend. I was friends with him, and I was friends with her, right? But I was friends with him first. I don't know if that helps, but I came over to her place one day after school, and she was in the shower with another guy. So I was like, what am I going to do? I'm in the middle here. So I told his best friend, which was my boyfriend at the time. And then he was like, I have to tell him that's my friend. And then I obviously got in trouble. But I felt like it was the right thing to do at the time as a teenager,
Tough spot.
And then I had left some things at her place because I would sleep over sometimes. And she put a raw hot dog in my book of poetry that I've been writing,
man.
and a condom. I don't know if it was used, but I tried to report it through my school, but they're like, she doesn't go to this school, so we can't do anything.
Right.
So, yeah. Shout out to Victoria.
Okay. There you go. If she watches. No, I just find that really fascinating about you. And you kind of fit that mold. I know that you said you struggled with depression, and so have I, in a very serious way. I don't think I've talked about it super in depth on my podcast, but I'm sort of waiting for the right time to talk about that. But it was a really serious moment. So I definitely. We were talking about Chester Bennington earlier, not on the podcast thing, but it's one of those things where when other people talk about depression or suicide, it's best not to talk about it unless you've experienced it. So one thing, maybe this is tangential, I don't know, but we're talking. This is a conversation, so feel free to go off on a tangent. Because one thing I don't like is when people, and you saw this with Chester a little bit, when they criticize people who have committed suicide or almost committed suicide, and they'll call them cowards, and they will say that they're weak and stuff like that, and that, really, I really don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, counsel me or whatever, but I think it takes a lot of courage to actually go through with it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. That's one of the things that keeps people alive, is the thought of killing oneself is scary.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't go through with it just on fear.
Yeah.
So for them to be called cowards is kind of ridiculous, just based on that. But there are a lot of things one could say. I'll just briefly. Some of the things that I have heard is like people who are depressed. Again, this is according to some psychological research I've heard about, but I haven't read in depth. But like people who are depressed aren't necessarily like irrational. They can be hyper rational. Sometimes, and I hope and I wish that people could be more understanding. Sometimes people are going through things that, I'll put it like this: sometimes the people who want to kill themselves are right, sometimes in this sense, in the sense that what they're going through is terrible. What they're going through is unbearable, maybe. Killing themselves would relieve them from the pain that they're suffering. You know, maybe there isn't a way out, you know. But of course, those are not things that we want to, say, like, you know, I mean, I think you can say to someone who is suffering from depression, you can say, hey, you know, you may be right about this or that, but let me give you these reasons why I think it's better if you're alive, you know? And
It's really hard to believe it'll get better.
It is.
When you're in that state.
It is. And, you know, and the sad thing is sometimes the people are right, you know, I think, the people who commit suicide. So I think just labeling them all as crazy is not helpful. You know, I think we just illustrated why calling them cowards is doesn't make sense. Stuff like that. Maybe that was a little tangential, but
but also
that's important to say.
I want to say a lot of the times when we're suicidal, or when I was suicidal, I didn't have the tools to cope. I didn't have the family support I needed. Mental health wasn't widely spoken about. You know, in Latinx households, we don't really talk about that.
It's perceived as weak, right?
My mom, I think she's her kids. She's one of, I think, 5 kids as well. She was the first parent to be open to taking your kids to therapy. First, my younger sister went for her anxiety, and then eventually I went for my depression. So it's just breaking through those barriers, those cultural barriers sometimes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then finding the tools you need, right, through therapy or whatever else works.
Yeah. So for me, it was sort of like changing my life around. So like, I try to like overreact to it in terms of, I knew that it's sort of like a slippery slope. Like the more that you start to slip, like the faster you can go down. So like what I wanted to do was sort of attack it in every single like direction, so that I would have the best chance at feeling good. So like I started going to the gym. I started to send my resume out more, you know, to get a better job. What else was I doing?
So you mustered some motivation.
Yeah. You know, I changed my diet, so I was eating better. I hung out with friends more, you know. And that's something that really, I think, probably saved me is I did have friends. And I talked to them. And sometimes it's embarrassing to, when you're like that, to cry in front of your friends.
Or to just tell them over and over that I don't feel good today, I'm sad today.
Yeah. And so that's hard. Maybe it's harder for a guy, I don't know, to cry in front of your friends. But knowing that people care about you, I think, is crucial to valuing yourself if you have trouble with that, because sometimes we don't value ourselves, right? But if we know that people care about us and they tell us this, it's hard to ignore that there's something there that is worthy, or that does have value. So
yeah, even though sometimes you're like, I don't believe you. So
yeah,
there's also that.
There is also that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some people like me need a lot of reassurance because maybe we didn't get like the validation we needed as kids.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like, you know, parenting is kind of that first, what do I want to call it? Like that first sort of thing, that the first wall maybe that helps protect you, if parenting is done right, against like the world, because living is fucking hard. Okay. And I want to say that because for whoever's listening to this, I want to just, especially if you're going through something like living is hard. People die. The people you love die. You ultimately have to, most likely alone, slowly, will die.
This is getting dark.
But it's important to like commiserate here together and to go like, yeah, we're all going through this shit. And that's why it's important to be there for other people. That's why it's important to tell people, you care about them. And why it's important to get over grudges and not hate people, and to open yourself up to other people and friends and family, and to love them too.
Yeah, human connection is healing. We need more human connection, but as the world advances, we have more connection through social media, but people are somehow more distant from each other, less vulnerable.
That's interesting. So you're saying social media is like, are you saying...
I love social media. I have to do social media for
It's useful.
my jobs, but...
It's useful, yeah.
Yeah. But I think, well, for me anyway, social media is a way for me to just laugh at memes, watch cute cat videos.
Sure.
That's what I do most of the time on social media. And then obviously I use my own account as sort of like a little picture diary, right? To document my life.
Yeah.
But I think that, especially now with TikToks and all that, it's more for entertainment. It's not so much for, hey guys, I'm going through something. I know some people do say, hey, this is the real side of Instagram, and this is the Instagram version or whatever, right? This is like the real me, and then this Instagram version, right? I wonder what it'd be like if everyone's just no filter, really just themselves all the time.
Yeah.
No personas.
That's the thing.
But does that sell? Does authenticity sell? I mean,
Wow.
It does a really great example is Elisabeth Velazquez, who her first novel came out, When We Make It, a few days ago, and she's #1 for YA fiction on Amazon already. And I think aside from her writing being amazing, she has an amazing personality, and she shares everything. Well, not everything, but she shares parts of her life, personal parts with everyone. The writing process, her son. So I think people like that, right?
Okay.
They like the authenticity, but we still fall into the whole entertainment thing by default, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, social media is very toxic, I find. And I still think we haven't gotten to the point where we overall as a society have a healthy relationship with social media. And it's for a lot of reasons, right? There are, of course, the algorithms that encourage flagrant content, polemical content, controversial shit, and clickbaity stuff. And that's also the business model, right? That's also what's wrong with a lot of media, whether it's movies or music or even news, right? Because it's a business. So I think, we haven't reached that level where we are at
A balance, maybe?
Where we have a healthy relationship with social media. I think we can get there. We have to tweak things. But here's one of the harmful things, right? This is an obvious thing about social media, right? And you kind of alluded to it, is that people post what they think other people want to see. So other people don't even get a realistic version of other people's lives. they get the Instagram version, right? They get the glamorous version.
The snapshots.
They get the, when the other people are, whatever, on vacation or with the filters or at the club or, but how many people are posting? I mean, other than you, because apparently you post like your daily stuff, but how many people are really posting, I just woke up, and then you take a picture, no filter.
I think that's what Facebook was for a few years ago. Just like writing random, what is it, captions? I don't remember. I don't really use Facebook anymore. It was just like, I'm eating this right now. Like.
Was that what it was originally?
I mean, what was that? How old was I? High school? Facebook? After 16, Facebook was a thing, I think.
Yeah,
it was
you're
MySpace.
younger than I am, but I don't know if I was paying attention to Facebook.
They would just post anything, any kind of statement. I forgot what it's called. Is it a caption? Is it a statement?
Status update.
Status update? Do they still call it that? I don't know. It just makes me think of AIM and Yahoo Messenger.
Yeah, but I think that's what it's called, status update.
Yeah,
and I think that's just kind of universal at this point. Yeah, so I don't know. I think social media is something that I think society still is not benefiting from overall, but we saw that with the election in 2016, how the Russians, I mean, getting a little bit into the news here, but how the Russians were able to use social media to divide us, right? Social media makes it really easy to divide Americans.
Yeah, it does. I mean, those comment sections, stay away from them.
The comments, the groups, the content, the echo chamber ness, that's not a word, but whatever, the echo chamberness of social media, and you need to be listening to and watching. First off, good sources, right? With some like authority. I tell this to my students, right, when they're doing research papers. It's like, don't just go to a random website or just because it's online or it says .com or whatever. Doesn't mean it's a good source, right? When you're trying to find research to learn more about a particular topic before you create your thesis, right? For all the students out there, you want to make sure that your sources are authoritative, right? That they have some credibility. And so you look at, for example, someone might be, I don't know, a dentist.
Okay.
But are you going to cite them when you're talking about skin cancer? No, right? Do they have authority? Are they authoritative? Yes, they're an expert in their field, right? Dentistry. But when it comes to skin, that's really not their forte. Just a small example, right, of something that where students can get confused. Like, oh, well, this person is a scientist. But what does that mean that the person is a scientist? What do they study? Where do they study? What degrees do they have? Not that degrees are everything, but it should be related to the thing that they are, writing about.
Yeah.
And so just to relate that back to social media, like where you get your news, for example, should come from good sources, right? That doesn't mean that they need to have a PhD or a master's in political science or whatever. But it just means they should. It would make sense if they studied something along their field or the thing that they're talking about, or that they have a track record of writing about this stuff.
Yeah, like peer reviewed articles.
Sure. Yeah. or that they're unbiased as people can be, right? Stuff like that. So that's number one, right? You just try to make sure you have good sources. But other than that, try to make sure that you engage in material even that you disagree with, right? I think that's important too, right? So, for example, I'm left-leaning politically, but I will occasionally listen to like right-leaning media that I think is more reasonable than other right-leaning media. And in order to get a perspective that I don't usually get, because it's just a really good way of getting ideas that you wouldn't normally get.
And also maybe understanding how they get to those thoughts.
Yeah. Or, here's a crazy idea, to see if maybe they're right, because sometimes the other side might be right about something, right? There's no guarantee that your side is right.
Yeah.
Or certainly not about everything.
Yeah, fun fact, I'm very burn it all down leaning. Start over.
Like anarchy?
I want to say anarchy, but I don't like to label it.
Yeah. Wow, that's so anarchy. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, okay, so let's get into politics.
Really?
Well, I mean, I brought it up, but you encouraged me. So what do you mean by burn it all down? What motivates you to say that?
Well, I hate capitalism. It pins people against each other. It creates a hierarchy. It's the very reason why poverty exists. I grew up in poverty, so I have a first-person perspective on what that is like. So my parents split up, but we were always struggling. 5 kids to feed. So when we eventually settled in the Bronx, my mother and my 4 siblings, 5 of us, we ended up in a really shitty apartment. Roaches everywhere, mice, mold. There was no heat at times in the winter or hot water, so it was very much go to sleep with socks and a hat and a sweater on under your blankets because it got really cold. So, growing up like that, you're just like, you think, I must be worthless. Why do I live like this? Why do I deserve this?
Right.
And then you realize later on that it's the way the system is built. When you're in poverty, it's very hard to get out.
It is.
It's very hard to get out. Part of it's because you fall into the patterns that your parents were in, right? The other part of it is there aren't very many great paying jobs out there who give you a chance without having like prior experience. But how do you get that experience? By someone hiring you, but they want experience. So it's like, it's maddening. But it's also, for me anyway, it's not having that total belief in myself that I deserve those positions or that I can do them because I don't have the experience, and also because I don't have role models, right, who are there or have been there, people who quote unquote made it, right? But I also like when it comes to that phrase, making it, the way Elisabeth Velazquez talks about it, she says making it can look like a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily have to be financially. So in a way, I'm in the process of making it, I guess. But yeah, hate capitalism. Hate the 2-party system. Poverty shouldn't exist. Homelessness shouldn't exist. Everyone should just have basic necessities. It's really maddening.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So we don't agree exactly on capitalism, but I think that there are definitely some areas of agreement. So I like social democracy, right? The idea, it's like a mixed system. Right? I mean, it's a capitalist system, but it's more socialistic than the U.S. So they have this in certain European countries, France, and to some in varying degrees, right? France, much of Scandinavia, the UK even, and they'll have stuff like whatever, free college or universal healthcare, and they're not socialist really, in the sense that they're still under like a capitalist system. Like you still have businesses, they're still privately owned. There's still that competitive reward incentive structure that I think is what's good about capitalism, because it rewards hard work. But
how do you define that hard work, though? Because there are people who work 7 days a week, 40 hours,
That's a great
80
point.
hours, 60-hour weeks. They're working hard, but
Yes.
they are not getting a living wage.
Yeah, and that's where, again, we'll agree and disagree, in the sense that I want a lot of those people to earn a better wage, and I think that the government does need to step in to set those a minimum wage. I certainly believe in a minimum wage, and I know that there are some I don't know what to call them, ultra capitalists that don't believe in that. They think there should be no minimum wage, and they think it's bad for workers, Peter Schiff and people like that. So I do think there's a lot of exploitation. There's a lot of there's a harmful effect that money has on our politics, and I think that's really obvious. And I think that it's such a huge problem that I think if we solve money in politics, I think that we get a lot more shit done.
I think if everyone had basic necessities, there would be a huge uptick in productivity.
Yeah. So the question is then, like, how do we do that, right? Now,
maybe take some money away from the military, stop bailing banks out.
Yeah, so those are some proposals, right? And I believe in Scandinavia, a lot of it is, raising taxes, which people generally are okay with, right? It's not like because I think here in the U.S.
It depends how you raise them and on who you raise them.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, AOC is famous for saying tax the rich. By the way, my friend Marcos de la Guagua, musician, shout out to Marcos. I can't remember whether his song is called Tax the Rich, but like the chorus is basically like Tax the Rich. It's a dope song. I'm gonna link it, as a matter of fact, in the description to this. But yeah, it's like tax the rich. How much do you tax the rich? Some people say, well, the rich are paying more taxes. It's like, okay, first off, because this is where people get very debatey. I'm just making up words. There are a few things that need to be clear here that we need to just say right off the bat, right? Which is, if you're, like we just said, if you're rich, it's easier to make more money, right? It's easier because you have the money, you have the capital in order to do the things that might make you more money, which whatever it is, whether it's investing or it's starting a business or it's
and it's overall easier to just be alive.
Exactly. Yeah, very true. That's a huge thing, right? And that's where I definitely agree with you, where it's like it's hard to get out of poverty because it costs money to get out of poverty. Yeah. It costs money to live.
It's very expensive to be poor.
That's a brilliant point. I want to make sure I ask you about universal basic income, but I want to make sure that I finish my point here. So I might forget it. I'm not sure, but so rich people not only can, first off, their needs are met, they're happy, or they should be anyway.
Well, yeah.
They should be.
Maybe.
You know, all things being equal, they should be. Also, they can take advantage of tax loopholes and hire financial experts. Again, these are more ways that the rich just save more. The rich are better with money, almost always, usually, I think, compared to the poor. Maybe some people would disagree with that, but I think generally that's true.
Well, it's also very hard to save money when you're poor, when just living paycheck to
Exactly.
paycheck, surviving.
Exactly, yeah. And the rules, this is another point, and the rules are set in your favor because, again, we have money in politics, and bribery is essentially legal, in government. Really, when you think about lobbying and so forth. And, according to our government, money is speech. And so the point is, the rich have all these advantages and these tax loopholes. And their basic needs are obviously met, and there are people who are struggling to meet those basic needs. It makes sense that they should be paying more, right? As a percentage, and I know that they do in many ways, but it's something that I think just makes sense. Okay, so what do you think about UBI, Universal Basic Income? Andrew Yang, who ran for governor, it didn't work out, but governor, I'm sorry, did I say governor? Mayor of New York. He is famous for popularizing it, right? Not inventing it. I think Martin Luther King was talking about it, and others. What do you think about that idea? Because, we said living costs money, and you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Do you have a right to money?
Well, you need money to pursue your happiness. Not necessarily to be happy, but to pursue the things maybe that make you happy, like having a nice place to live.
And health, too, right? And that's part of the reason why I think we would agree that healthcare, at least basic healthcare, is a right. And that's why people say it, right? Because you need health to
live a good life.
To live, right? And certainly to live a good life. So, what do you think about universal basic income? Does it fall into that, or
I don't think it would solve the issue, the class hierarchy we have.
What if we gave the money to the poor and not people who have money? Wouldn't it? I don't know. Like, if the problem is if poor people don't have money, you give them money. By definition, does that not solve it, depending on how much money you give them? Or,
well, yeah, depending on how much you give them.
Sure.
Just personally, I hate money. I hate that you need it for basic things. Sure. I just don't think it would. If it would solve the hierarchy, right? It would. Let's say if you give money, a good amount of money to poor people every month, right, or to low-income folks every month, and it eliminated the hierarchy because they now have more wealth, right? I don't think under the current system that would be allowed, because then rich people will not be as rich, and they don't want to be less rich. They always want to be more rich. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. What was he proposed? Yang proposed $2,000 a month, right, for people over a certain age.
I think it was 1,000, but
1,000?
I think he was like, the idea was to move that up. Yeah,
that's not enough. Still, honestly, it's not gonna. That wouldn't have eliminated the hierarchy. New York, especially New York City. New York City, where I live, is very expensive.
Yeah,
so that'd cover part of your rent.
Yeah. So the question, of course, is like how much, and the idea.
It would definitely make a difference in the lives of low-income folks, right? Maybe they could now do leisurely activities to then increase their serotonin, right?
How about
But-
this? Maybe now they can afford lunch during their break from work. You know, I mean, people don't understand like the level of poverty
Yeah.
that we have, and like how hard it is. You know, I certainly grew up poor, and certainly not wealthy. I don't consider myself wealthy. But yeah, I mean, all of the things that you already said, I don't need to rehash them, but I agree, right? It's harder to save when basically all of your money goes into, you know, just housing,
Bills,
and food.
clothing.
You know, clothing is like, you know, it's you buy it because you need it for the most part.
Yeah.
If you're poor, not because you know you feel like you need a new look for the spring or whatever. So I think the idea behind UBI, Universal Basic Income, and what I liked about it is that it wasn't meant as a cure-all. Right?
Yeah.
This was one of the criticisms it got that I feel like from the left, that I feel like the people saying that didn't quite understand. Like Yang was not presenting it as a cure-all, a panacea. He thought that it would help in many different areas, but help is the operative word, right? What I like about it also is that, because I also agree with that, it does help in many different areas. I like that because it's money, it helps the people who need it the most. The most poor are the people who are going to benefit from it the most. And I like that you get it, no questions asked. You know, you don't have to, you know, check all of these boxes. You don't have to show up to an office. You don't have to, you know, make sure you fit certain criteria. You know, there's something really kind of futuristic and almost like Star Trek about it, you know, because I don't know if you remember, but like in Star Trek, or if you watched it.
I've only watched one of the movies, I think. It's one of the shows I've been meaning to watch because
I love TNG, The Next Generation. It's amazing. The writing is really good. Yeah, it's pretty old, but...
yeah, my sister really loves Star Trek.
But yeah, I don't like the original that much. But I'm starting with The Next Generation. There are like, I'm not sure, nine seasons?
Have you watched Doctor Who?
No.
Oh, I was going to ask, as a Doctor Who person myself, would I like Star Trek?
Oh, you're a Whovian.
Yeah.
I had an ex who was really into Doctor Who, and she made me watch the episodes sometimes. I think she just liked British shows because she
I was, for a while, watched Skins and some werewolf one. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, another one she watched was the IT Crowd.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
funny.
it's fun. That one I kind of like.
Turn it off. Did you turn it off and turn it back on?
Yeah, just turn it off. Or what is it? Unplug it, plug it back in. Turn it off, turn it back on. Yeah. I wasn't crazy about Doctor Who. I know there's like, 50
it's
seasons
pretty dense.
or whatever the hell.
It can be dense, but I love it. The all the characters they come up with, whoever does the special effects, makeup, and all that, it's amazing. And then they humanize it. He's this Time Lord who's lived for however long, and he has human companions, so they humanize him.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyway, I saw it. It didn't pique my interest for whatever reason, but Star Trek is it's different. It's different. Doctor Who kind of reminds me a little bit of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I love Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Same.
Galaxy. I wasn't crazy about Doctor Who, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. First off, when people ask me, like, what are some of the best, who are some of the best world builders
Okay.
in sci-fi? He's Douglas Adams of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fame is like, I don't know, top 5 maybe for me. Like, he's pretty high up there. Like, first off, his writing is elegant in the sense that
witty.
it's fluid, it's easy to read, it's pleasant, it's so funny, but without like trying so hard to be funny. And it's a style that I really ripped off of a lot when I was younger. I liked him and Vonnegut, and I sort of had a style that kind of was somewhat Vonnegut-esque and somewhat like Douglas Adams. And it's such a freaking cool world. The only criticism I have is like, because of like stuff like the improbability drive, and like it's just like anything could happen.
Okay. Yeah.
That's my only criticism. Is like it's like a double-edged sword. It's good because anything can happen, but it's not so great in the sense that like it's kind of like a Deus ex machina thing, right? It's like the solution could just come out of nowhere, and it wouldn't even be that surprising because, again, anything can happen. So, I don't know.
I don't remember. Did they ever get to what 42 really is? You know, the answer to everything.
I'm only up to...
I read the whole series, but I don't remember. It was a while back.
Right. They were trying to get to what the question is, right?
Oh, right. The answer is 42.
The answer is 42. What is the question?
Yeah. But then they say it was like the something about the answer to the universe, everything. Something like that. I don't remember. I should remember.
Yeah. What is the answer to life?
The universe.
The universe and the...
Is it and everything?
And everything, or the meaning of everything? Something like that. I'm forgetting. No, I just read I haven't read the whole thing. I read the first one like several times. And
Yeah,
then
the first one's my favorite.
First one's so good. It's so good. And then the second one, the restaurant at the end of the universe, like that's so trippy because the scene. Did you remember that scene with it's like a man cow. It's like a conscious cow thing at a restaurant where it wants you to eat it.
What? I don't remember that.
Where the cow is like...
It's like over 5 years ago, I think I read these series.
Yeah, it's like some weird space cow or something that it wants you...
To eat it?
To eat it.
But it's alive.
It's like your hamburger, before it becomes a hamburger, is a cow, and the cow is talking to you, and it's like, well, what part of me would you like to eat? And you know, but completely divorced from any sense of guilt. At least that's what the objective is. The objective from the cow, or at least from the way that it's written, is, okay, let's say your food totally wanted you to eat it, right? Like if you
That'd
eat...
be a weird thing to get used to.
Yeah, like if you eat... So I'm vegetarian, but if you eat beef, what if you could talk to the cow and it's conscious and it could perfectly reflect on what's going to happen? It knew what was going to happen. It was okay with it. And
But how would it be okay with it? That's what I want to know. Like, with dying to be consumed rather than letting itself live until old age.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide, right?
It's all made up.
It doesn't make any sense. But what's fascinating about reading that part is it was incredibly disturbing to me. And it highlighted the fact that despite the fact that many people who eat meat use this argument, because I've heard it a lot. I've heard this argument several times. It's like, well, you know, but... Or something related to this, which is like, like they don't have a mind to make up about it, you know, or you know, we make this decision for them, and they're not really protesting against it. Like, it would be different if they were somehow.
I mean, I would say animals do protest when they're crying and all that. I'm not
if you've
vegetarian, but
yeah, if you've seen I've heard about like pigs in slaughterhouses squealing when they see the farm owner with a shotgun, for example. Like, they recognize.
I mean,
like, what
pigs
that
are
means.
really smart.
Pigs are as smart as dogs.
Yeah.
Or smarter, as some
Smarter,
people
yeah.
say. When you read that scene, to me at least, it makes it clear that it doesn't matter whether the cow is like, yeah, totally, eat me. It's totally fine. Do you want, you know, some rump, or do you want this piece or that piece? I'd love to serve you and to make you happy and all of that. That part actually doesn't matter, because what's disturbing about that is the fact that that animal should die for you. I don't know. To me, it was actually really brilliantly written. I mean, it might as well have been written by a vegetarian or a vegan. I'm not sure what Douglas Adams' dietary thing was, but to me, it's brilliant. And I was just seeing if maybe you had read that part and remember.
I don't remember it, but it makes me think of a series. There's this series, I forgot the author, but I think it's the unaborted. It's like a Socrates series, right? So it's a conversation with Socrates. Someone's conversing with Socrates. The one I read was the unaborted Socrates, which was about abortion. So they try to logically explain it. So it's a debate. It's murder. It's not murder, right? I personally don't think it's murder. I've had an abortion before. But it's just like, I think it makes me think of that, because they're just logically trying to, like, maybe you'll say, maybe this person is pro-life, maybe this person is pro-choice. But it's trying to be objective in a way, trying to present both sides.
Yeah, right.
So that's what I like about that series.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what Socrates was about, you know. That's what being Socratic is about. It's not so much about being about having an opinion per se. It's more about
deconstructing the argument.
Yeah, deconstructing the argument. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And really being open to where the ideas take you, as opposed to like trying to take the ideas somewhere. So I find that really cool. Okay, so what are some? Yeah, I mean, well, you mentioned some authors that who are some authors that you like, some work that you like, and maybe anything else that you like that's art.
Okay, so Basic Sad Girl, The Bell Jar is one of my favorite books.
Oh, cool. I haven't read it yet, but
I even have a bell jar tattoo.
Oh, that's cool.
I love Elisabeth Velazquez, who just came out with her first novel in verse, YA, When We Make It. I've been reading her stuff on Instagram, because she started as an Instagram poet, and she made it, right? What we consider making it. I also really love Brian K. Vaughan, specifically for the Saga series. I love comics. Tilly Walden also. On a Sunbeam is amazing. Who else? I have so many books.
Yeah, that's the other thing is you said you have a lot of books.
Yeah. I think I have at least 200 physical books at home.
Wow.
I have to store most of them because I don't have the space.
Consider Kindle. I'm just saying. I know we talked about this earlier, but
I'm thinking about it. But it's just not the same. And also, I know there's like stuff for your eyes so they don't hurt when you're staring at a screen. It just, I don't know.
Just for the space.
I've read books, but on my phone, which is not big enough for that, right?
Yeah.
I mostly read comics or novellas on my phone.
Oh.
Because it's easier for me to take it in.
Comics
that.
on an iPad are pretty cool,
Yeah.
or a tablet.
Oh, but also Octavia Butler is great. Nettie, I don't want to butcher her last name. I think it's Okorafor. She's amazing.
Haven't heard of.
Yeah, she writes African futurism.
Cool.
I forget the other one. Yeah,
Do you like N.K. Jemisin?
it's on my to be read list. Her
Cool.
stuff, because
Sure.
I know she was inspired by Octavia Butler, and yeah, so I'm like, gotta follow.
She has a master class too, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I've seen that.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool for fans of hers. I like her stuff.
Oh, Melissa Lozada Oliva. I can't forget her. She has a book coming out in October. Her first novel. It's about Selena.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, it's about a girl who has a dream. Selena's involved. Yeah. I'm waiting to get my signed copy.
Yeah, for non-Latinos, Selena, how would you describe her?
She was a very much loved Mexican singer who was murdered by... Was she the accountant? She was the head of her fan club, I think.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Right?
I don't remember exactly. I thought it was a crazy fan or something.
No. She worked with her closely, very closely.
Oh, wow.
I think she even considered her a best friend, one of her closest friends. People say it was jealousy.
Oh yeah, there's a movie with J-Lo, right?
Yeah,
I think I saw that some time ago.
and then there was a Netflix series I didn't watch because,
Okay.
yeah, I just didn't. Feel
Okay, so let's transition into Netflix and movies. So what do you like?
Okay. So there's this movie that stands out. Well, so I was trying to watch everything Adam Driver's in because
Adam Driver. Oh, that
Kylo
guy.
Ren.
Yeah, Kylo Ren. He's cool. He's a cool dude.
Because he's hot. But also, so I came across this movie called Tracks, which is based on an actual person who took camels and a dog through the desert in, I believe it was Australia. Australia has a desert? I think it was Australia.
yeah. Australia does, I
Okay.
think. I mean, it's
So she wanted to just do this journey. And then the movie, at first I'm like, okay, a movie about a white lady going through the desert. Okay, what's happening here? But then it gets, it goes on. And she has these moments where she's having flashbacks to when she was younger. And it's a very emotional journey for her. In a way, she's coming to terms with things that she's gone through in her past as she's going through this solitary journey. And the photographer is Adam Driver, and at first he's really annoying, but he grows on you. Yeah, so that's one of the movies. I don't know if that was on Netflix. It might have been like Hulu or HBO Max. But
what did you say it was called again?
Tracks.
Tracks.
It's based on an actual person, and it was like an expose in a National Geographic magazine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
What else?
That's another recommend.
Sex Education on Netflix.
Oh, I saw an
Everyone
ad,
should watch it.
or trailer.
It's one of my favorite shows.
Okay.
I May Destroy You on HBO Max. Amazing.
Sorry, I don't know.
Should watch it.
I don't have HBO Max, but
I don't either. But you get people's logins.
okay. Cool.
What else? I've been watching a lot of anime. My physical therapist recommended Assassination Classroom. It's this not alien, apparently has lived on the earth forever, who blew a huge hole in the moon and made it permanently crescent shaped. And he's threatening to destroy the earth in a year. But his terms are, let me be a teacher for that year. And so what they do, the government, somehow, for some reason, they make special weapons that can harm, what's his name? Is the word for unkillable in Japanese. Yeah, I feel like there's an S in there.
Korosu is
Yes.
to die, is to kill.
Koro sensei.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they get the bottom of the barrel kids who have bad grades, right, at this like elite school. I guess it's elite because they use these kids to keep the other ones in line, right?
Okay.
They're class E, which is the lowest level, and they have this like campus or this building far from the main campus, and so he has to teach them, and they have to try to kill him.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's surprisingly very heartwarming because he's a really great teacher to them.
Oh.
So I don't believe he wants to kill everybody.
Yeah, it's like one of those hard lessons, like those tough love lessons or something.
But aside from that, there's I saw Jujutsu Kaisen. It's really good. Very basic, but Gojo is really cute. My favorite character. Have you noticed? Did you watch? You said you watched some anime, right?
I do watch.
They don't give the female identifying characters, like, they don't make them very protagonisty, right? So they're not someone you want to. Well, okay, if you're thinking about like if you're somebody who like gets attracted to people, right? They're not characters you want to date. Like I'm pansexual, but I never find myself attracted to the female identifying or female presenting anime characters, really. Because they don't give them like those kind of personalities that are attractive. They're just background characters.
I mean, they tend to have they sometimes they're very cookie cutter. Like, what was that show? 7 Deadly Sins.
I haven't watched that one.
Oh, where one of the female is like she's kind of just a sex object, like, you know, like kind of this very hyper feminine, super voluptuous, kind of innocent, you know, stereotype of like that's the Japanese idoru, you know, model. So I did like Death Note. Death Note, you know, I thought the writing was really good.
I just hate how he died at the end.
Oh,
so
man.
Basic.
Spoiler alert.
Well, I didn't say who. Someone dies. A lot of people die in that show.
I think people will figure that one out. But, well, okay, you might not. Oh man, that was good. That was good. That's so. It's just well written. What else? There are just more anime. I try to give some other ones a shot. Like, what did I try? I tried 7 Deadly Sins. I didn't get super into it. I did watch every episode of Bleach, which we talked about before.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a lot of
which
episodes.
is a lot.
I mean, it's not as many as One Piece, though, is it?
One Piece is, I haven't seen
It's
One
rumored
Piece.
to have, I think, over 1,000 episodes.
I wanted to start watching Naruto because I know that's a big one. And part of the reason, by the way, that I watch anime is, well, I like Japanese culture, but it's a good way for me to practice Japanese. So I really like languages. There are 4 that I say that I can speak. Because, you know, people ask you that, right? They ask you, like, how many languages can you speak? And for me, that means something. Like, when people ask you how many languages you can speak, they're saying, how many can you hold a conversation in without, you know, using aids? And to that, I would say 4, right? I would say English, American, Spanish. I'm Latino, and practice my Spanish. French, which we talked about before, off camera. It's the first foreign language that I tried learning, and I took it at college. And I really like French culture and French people, and you know, I don't think they're snobby. I just think they really like art. Some of them are snobby, and Japanese. So I'm just a huge sort of Japanese fan. For some reason, my mind is jumping into this guy who had surgery to make himself look Korean.
Really?
Like a white dude.
Wow.
Because I was going to
haven't heard
say
of that.
I was going to say I really love Japanese, but I don't think I'm Japanese. Unlike this dude who it's so crazy. So he This is so stupid. Tell me what you think about this. He identifies as Korean. Like,
Because he really likes the culture.
I guess. He's transracial. Like, he identifies as Korean.
Oh, that's the thing. Transracial.
So he's like, this is like a new thing.
Like you change your race.
Like, I guess he,
Well,
you know how people identify
Rachel,
as
was it Dolezal?
something else? Yeah, that was like the first time I heard about that, right? Now, I have my own opinions about this, like, but let me just describe it for anybody who doesn't know, and what I know about it, right, which is not a lot. Like, there's this guy, he identifies as Korean. I think he calls himself Jimin, like after one of the K-pop stars of. I always call it BLT.
BTS.
BTS, yeah. I call it BLT, just kidding. But yes, it's BTS. They're like 10 guys in there. Like it's crazy. But anyway, he really likes this one guy called Jimin,
Okay.
and he changed his name to Jimin,
Wild.
and he had surgery on his face
Wilder.
to look Korean. Which, by the way, if you identify as Korean and you're getting surgery to look Korean, doesn't that kind of suggest to you that you're not Korean? I mean, just a crazy thought. So here's some of my thoughts on this. Eminem.
Okay.
Some people say that Eminem is black.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually in a Joyner Lucas song. You know, like, I think it's in the song "I'm Not Racist," where it says, "You can have Eminem. He's not white no more." And you know, people have been saying that for a long time. They've been saying, like, you know, like in the black community, like Eminem is black.
Like they accept them.
Yeah, but so that's kind of what they mean, right? They accept him, or like culturally he's black. What they're not saying is that his ancestors come from Africa.
Okay.
They're not saying that. He's also not identifying as black, right? He doesn't use the N-word, for example, right? Very self-consciously. I think that's fine, right? If you want to identify as black, for example, and you're white, and that's what you mean, like you feel like that captures that stereotype or that mold fits you better, I'm cool with that. But I think that's different from pretending that you're Korean. This guy was like speaking Korean. He was like speaking Korean, but he was speaking bad Korean. I know a tiny bit of Korean. His accent was really bad. He said 안녕하세요, 지민합니다, something like that, which just means like hello, I'm Jimin, and I could say it better than he can. And he's the one having surgery on his face to look Asian, you know. I think actually to look specifically like his
Like Jimin.
like Jimin from BTS. And apparently there was like this cutout of Jimin, and they like he was sleeping with it. He had mental problems. I mean, clearly. But what do you think about that whole transracial thing? Like, do you have an opinion on that, or do you just think it's?
Well, I think
crazy?
It's the root maybe of it is people trying to find something they can identify with, right? Maybe they don't have a grip on their identity, so they're trying to find something that they feel good about. Because maybe they don't feel, maybe their identity isn't fully developed, or maybe they just don't like who they are or their background, maybe. So they're looking for belonging, I think. Doesn't make it right, but I think that maybe is the psychological perspective on it.
Sure. obviously he's trying to be accepted, and what I think he could try a little harder, right? You know, if you're gonna pretend you're Korean, you know, like, you know, learn the language a little bit. But it's a little weird to me. It's a little contradictory. Like, it's like he's identifying as Korean, but he has surgery because he's saying basically the way he looks is not Korean, so he's changing the way he looks to look Korean, and which to me, you know, it's like there's a reason why people look Korean or look Asian. It's because their ancestors were Asian. You know, you can't make up your ancestry.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of just how I feel about it.
I would say a lot of us don't know our ancestry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of us don't know our ancestry and have mixed ancestry, are racially ambiguous. I have mixed ancestry. I have, according to 23andMe, I have, European, obviously, but I also have Native American. I have Black. I have even Arab.
Mm.
So
Makes sense because Spain is very close to the Middle East.
yeah. And Black. I mean, there were a lot of mixing with. Well, actually, there are a few theories I have, but yes, they were mixing with Arabs, right, in North Africa, and that's who the Moors were. The Moors conquered Spain. They controlled Spain for like 800 years, you know, from 711 A.D. to 1492. That's the Reconquista. You know.
So you don't think any of it is because of slavery, colonization?
Yeah, so that's the other thing.
Okay.
So yeah, it's also because of that.
Okay.
Slavery, because it's Western Africa is most of my Black side. I have a healthy amount. I thought that I would have like if I had Black, I thought it would be really small, but I have like almost 10%.
Okay.
Which is it's mind blowing, but it's also kind of amazing in a good way. Like I really like. I mean, this just sounds maybe stupid, but. But whenever in school we would learn about slavery and we would learn about the treatment of Black people, or we would see films, like this is not related really, but I very much related to the oppressed in that, and some people maybe related more to the white slave owners, and maybe that's why people get defensive when
You get rid of the Confederate flag.
right, or we talk about slavery. And people do; they get defensive. I took a post-colonial studies class, and people got really defensive.
Yeah.
Some people.
I took one too.
Some people got really defensive
I
about.
mean, well, for me, sorry to cut you off, but the class was focusing on who was the guy that wrote the Jungle Book? Rudyard Kipling, right? So it was focusing on him a lot in the beginning, and we're like, why are we focusing on this colonizer so much? It's post-colonialism, which colonialism is not over. So post-colonialism is like ironic, but I just wanted to make that comment. It was really maddening that we focus so much on Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah, I believe he was.
His family lived.
He was a big white supremacist, and who wrote "White Man's Burden."
Yeah, I know that title, but I don't remember it either.
"White Man's Burden." It's ridiculous. It's basically the British self-justification
I think we read
ideology.
That. Yeah.
For colonization.
Yeah.
It's
They
basically
were like,
saying
they need more education and all this.
Yeah, we're giving them government. Oh, we don't want to take your stuff. No, this is hard work for us. Poor white man. We have to give you guys education and government, and this is so much hard work. You guys just get our labor. Yeah, we take some of your natural resources, but it's mostly a selfless effort, which is such a stupid argument. It's amazing what people will say to justify their own greed. But that's what colonialism was about. It was about taking people's shit. And that's why so many countries around the world are fucked, because they live through sometimes, decades or even centuries of colonization where their resources were taken from them. And they were giving a government that wasn't their own choosing. And they've been given these sick colonialist ideas of like racism and white supremacy, and I think that's a huge reason why a lot of or post-colonized countries still are struggling, not just because of that, but also like U.S. intervention and promoting dictators ahead of democratically elected leaders, because these dictators will do what the U.S. government wants. And so these countries end up with kleptocrats. These are basically rulers that steal the resources from their own country or their own countries. Yeah. I wanted to get that off my chest a little bit.
Yeah, they're destabilized and lose their autonomy. Should I read a poem?
Oh, you have stuff.
I have a poem that's coming out at the end of this month.
Dope. Yeah. I mean, on the magazine, right?
No, not 433. It's coming out through Peggy Robles Alvarado's a magazine called the L's get mixed up. La Libreta.
La Libreta.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to read it? Because it's going to come out on there.
I asked my mentor. He said it should be fine.
And this will be published later anyway.
Maybe I'll just do an excerpt. But I think it works best if you read the whole thing. Here it goes. It's called Hood Phantom. Okay. Mommy doesn't believe in terapia for herself, porque Dios is enough. Mommy doesn't believe in loneliness. The longest she's gone without un novio lies within the distance between my childhood and the Bronx, a boundary blurred and broken hood phantom. Poverty taught us to rely on ourselves, even though we didn't know how. Sans guidance, I turned to libros. Mommy turned to men. I became the orphan princess with a beautiful locket. Mommy fell into him and him and him. I flew away, didn't have to ever set foot on neglected earth again. He grabbed me and Manito by the collar. Pretended a wavering bridge was the path to castles and happiness. Mommy took us to the police station, all dressed up in party clothes. I fell into myself. Firecrackers or gunshots, I couldn't tell, because I was too busy escaping. Mommy stopped hugging us when roaches became the norm. When La Vecina's big mouth and acrylic talons in her face became the norm. When her dislike toward ghetto Puerto Ricans began. When Vecino kids hit my sisters, my brother. When the neighborhood boys gazed upon my adolescent body with lust. Mommy didn't know how to protect what was already taken from her. I wished for a full house family and the power of 3 and my own Wesley or Zorro or tuxedo mask. I learned to be attracted to men who hid their true faces. Mommy taught me that romance is my only way out. Mommy taught me I must escape to survive.
Wow.
I think it's coming out September 30th. La Libreta.
La Libreta.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy shit, there was a lot there. That's pretty powerful. I mean, it's so, like, it's autobiographical without being like an information dump, for example. Like it's also very, very affecting, very emotionally impactful, because of the way that you end it. It's like the desperation of wanting to get out, and for your mother, it was through men.
It was romance, yeah. Her going after what she believes was going to be her happily ever after.
So when she was trying to get out, she was trying to get out of the
just for
emotional.
her, yeah, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah. Wow.
And then eventually, I would follow her patterns as I got older and go for people who weren't the best. getting into
How did you say it? You learn to fall from men who
hid their true faces. And some I kind of still do for anime though, like Kakashi Sensei. Come on, Kakashi's hot.
I don't know who the hell you're talking about.
From Naruto.
From Naruto.
Kakashi, he has a Okay.
I don't know.
And then Satoru Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. He has a blindfold on.
I don't know any of these people.
He's so hot. But yeah. I guess they're hiding their eyes. Although, what's his name? Wesley from The Princess Bride. He also wears a blindfold, right?
I have no idea.
Okay, old movies.
I don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting. So is it the mystery? Because men who don't show their true faces, like obviously they're keeping some cards to themselves. Is there something attractive about the mystery, or is there like a power in that maybe is? I don't think envied is the right word, but
I think it's more like not mystery, but subconsciously you're. For me, it was like I trusted people really quickly, without getting to know them really well. So you trust their. I trusted them at their surface level, not when their true colors came out. So I was like my mom, rushed into relationship after relationship. That's what I was doing as a teenager.
Mm-hmm. I see. So it wasn't the fact that they hid their true faces.
Well, I would say they did hide it too, because I don't know. I just think it's very disingenuous when people are like trying to put their best face forward instead of really just being themselves when they meet someone.
Right. I mean, but we kind of all do that, right? Batman said we all wear masks. But so you weren't attracted to the fact that they didn't show their true faces, or were you? Was that an attractive element?
I think it was just subconscious, right? Like,
subconscious.
Yeah, just going for people who you didn't really know that well. Mm-hmm. People who appeared to be like nice and stuff on the outside, but they ended up not being that way.
That's kind of the dating world, no? I mean, or just people in general.
I don't want to think it's that bleak, but...
Well, I mean, it's social interaction. Like, everybody's trying to... It's almost... It harkens back to Shakespeare. Like, the world's a stage and we are all...
Players.
And that's what the social game is. You know, here's a short story that's related. Like, I'm living my life. I'm doing, the pandemic thing, which is like staying home. And then I go back to university, I haven't been there since, like April 2020? And as I go back and I'm doing the whole, back in the university, like the professorial atmosphere and all of that, I remember sort of getting in my car and like I was in campus and I'm like, I think I want to listen to maybe some hip hop. And then I'm like, no, but I don't want anybody to see me listening to hip hop.
Why?
But that's the thing. It's like what I noticed was when I was there, I felt a little bit different. I felt like it subconsciously, like I'm expected to
have a certain persona,
act a certain way, to listen to it. And I'm not saying that I gave in to these things. I listen to what I want, but I'm just saying I noticed that that's kind of the effect that society has on you. Like it's artifice. Like it
kind of like code switching, maybe.
Code switching is not something that comes to my mind when I think about that. Code switching, by the way, is like for anybody who doesn't know, it's like switching between languages, in a fluid sort of way. And so I don't know. I just recognize that subtle effect that society has on you, where there are expectations, and there are not just expectations but paradigms of what it is and what it means. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't want that to change who I am. I want to be who I am. And if people think I'm dumb or not professional or whatever because I listen to, I don't know, Joyner, Lucas, or Logic or Eminem from time to time. By the way,
Is that a thing people think? I mean, I grew up in the Bronx for the most part, so like hip hop, it's where hip hop was created. But I've never heard that. Like, if you listen to hip hop, you're part of a stereotype of uneducated. Because it's really popular. It's probably the most popular.
It is popular.
Aside from pop, one of the most popular
But some of the
genres.
songs get kind of aggressive, and there's a certain lingo. And I'm from the Bronx, so I don't think it's... I don't find it as like that exotic or different as some people maybe who grow up in the suburbs and are white and maybe middle class or upper middle class, from the beginning of their lives. I feel like, there are some misconceptions. There are some ideas about what inner city people are like or what hip hop fans are like. And I mean, obviously, I think those stereotypes are bullshit. I think there's some fantastic writing in hip hop. I think I said it in a previous podcast. Like, I like it a lot of the older stuff. I like Notorious B.I.G., Lauryn Hill, and Nas, and Tupac. I think they were good writers, and they were authentic, and they had good messages for the most part. And I think there's just a little bit of an issue now, not with everybody, but just it's a little bit materialistic now. It's a little bit...
Cars and money.
Cars, money, women.
Good Charlotte.
Drugs.
It just made me think of a Good Charlotte song.
Oh, a Good Charlotte. Yeah. Good Charlotte. Yeah, I know that song.
Yeah.
I like Good Charlotte. They have good singing voices.
Good Charlotte, good singing.
Yeah. Dope. So, do you have anything coming out in the future or things that you want people to know about?
Well, just a magazine, 433 Magazine. Our website is 433.org. We're always open for submissions. We're currently revamping the website, but we're always open for submissions. Aside from that one poem, I submitted to some other place, so I'm just waiting to hear back. Yeah. I think we didn't get to like the writing process. Well, we did a little bit, right?
We can get to it now. What's your writing process like?
It's very mood-based, which is not good, right? Because I need the discipline, right? Which is why I enrolled in workshops to get me, because they're generative workshops. So you write while you're in them, right? So then you just have to go back and pick out an idea or a line and develop that. But when I'm writing, I listen to either piano music, ambient sounds, or if I'm writing like the story I wrote, Neutron Star, which is at like a sci-fi element, I look for like an ambient soundscape that has to do with space kind of music to get me like to write.
I do that sometimes too.
So just nothing with words. I can't concentrate if there's words.
Same.
Because then I'll sing along. I love to sing along. So
exactly. You know what I did? I bought what was it? The soundtrack to what's the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and the Dreams, Inception.
Oh, okay.
I bought that soundtrack because I'm a huge fan of what's his name? The freaking
Is it Hans
composer.
Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of him, and then I was watching the movie, and I'm like, this soundtrack is amazing, and I bought it. So I listen to stuff like that sometimes.
Yeah, no words. And aside from that, it's just sometimes, even when my daughter's home, I can write. So that's when the mood thing comes in, mood-based thing. I cannot write in the same room as her, though, because YouTube is very annoying.
Yeah,
The shows kids watch on YouTube are very annoying. I don't know why everything is like yelling. They're all yelling, and they're adults.
Yeah, it's to like capture kids' attention, I guess, and
It's wild. It's not necessary. I don't think it is. I think as long as you have colors and stuff. She likes a show called The Last Kids on Earth, and they're not always yelling. Yeah.
I think, there were probably different shows. And
Yes, that's mostly the writing process. The workshops, no words when I'm listening to music, and a lot of mood-based stuff, but I'm trying to build discipline.
yeah, I think, the same. Like, my writing process is pretty varied.
Yeah, mine is sporadic.
It's sporadic, although I try to be more regular. I try to just, one writer I really admire, a Japanese writer, Haruki Murakami, he has a very strict, regular routine, which is he wakes up, I don't know, like the crack of dawn, and I think it's maybe 5 o'clock in the morning, and he'll write for, if I remember correctly, somewhere around 4 hours.
Wow.
Which is quite intensive.
With breaks or?
Probably short breaks, but I'm guessing because he writes a lot.
It's a lot of focus.
It's a lot of
goals.
I'd get drained. I have written.
Yeah.
I have written before for streaks of 4 or 5 hours. I have done that before. But it's. I think nowadays I don't think I have the time for that usually. But anyway, he's very disciplined. He'll wake up. He'll do that for around 4 hours, and then he will go for a run.
Wow, very disciplined.
And he runs a lot. He's a very
mind and body.
Yeah, he's very disciplined and very obsessed with running in the same way that he's obsessed with writing. And it's something I've noticed a lot about writers. Another person like that is Malcolm Gladwell, who is another person I really have admiration for. He is also really passionate about running and is also very prolific. So I'm wondering if there's like this thing about.
I was on the track club for a few weeks until it got canceled.
Yeah, but they're specific. They write like long stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something about like novelists and running, or stuff like that.
Yeah, Nettie Okorafor. I hope I'm not butchering her last name. She was a track star in college. She writes the what is it? She wrote one of the Black Panther comics. She wrote the Binti series. It's just a 3-part novella series.
Cool.
Yeah, she runs.
Yeah, I think there's some other ones that are escaping me right now. There's some other novelists that are obsessed with running as well. One thing I've noticed is running and cats. She
has cats too.
Yeah.
Well, one cat.
I think N.K. Jemisin has cats. Poe, Edgar Allan Poe famously loved cats. Haruki Murakami. I had a cat for a long time, for like 16 years. I called him Neko-chan, which just means cat in Japanese. And who else? Some other writers.
Cats are chill.
Cats have that writer energy, that chill energy. Like, hey, let's chill
not when
out.
they're kittens, but
Right. Not when they're kittens. And
they got those eyes. They just peer at you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're great. I mean, I'm a vegetarian, so it'd be a little problematic if I got another cat because
'Cause
I
they
would have
eat.
to eat it. I would have to feed it meat.
Yeah. I mean, it's nature.
Yeah, like
You can't make 'em
It's an obligate
vegetarians.
carnivore, right? It has to eat meat. Like you would be abusing your cat if
Yeah.
if you didn't give it meat. At least a dog, you can. There are some breeds. There's some Indian breeds that apparently do really well on a vegetarian diet. So I don't know. Maybe at some point, but there are other animals that you can. There's birds and
Birdseed.
yeah, stuff like that. Cool. This was really cool talking to you. Like, it's kind of late here. People don't know that, and yeah, you're always welcome. If you have, especially if you publish something, like if you have like a novel or something.
Yeah, my friend / mentor wants me to do NaNoWriMo this year. It's so
That's
intimidating, but maybe I'll try it.
I always want to start and then don't. Like I always want to do it and then like the first day maybe I'll write some stuff. But the thing is, I believe there's a method. Like I think the month before you're supposed to like plan.
For real.
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was like, let me just get on this website, use their organizational
if
tools.
If you start on November 1st.
Well, actually,
you're
I was going to
already screwed.
start from the short story that I've published because I wrote a companion story to it, but I didn't get that one published. But he was like, maybe doing a two perspective YA novel or something based on that story.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and this was a good conversation. Any parting message that you want to leave?
Well, working at the Writing Center, you realize how many people think they're not good writers, but I think it's just they haven't been encouraged enough. I come across so many good writers, people who say, I don't think my writing's that great, because they're so hung up on grammar. But, if you get published, you get someone to edit your shit for you. So it's more about the content. It's more about the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, and just think about what not being a good writer means. Usually it means that like their experience, usually in high school, wasn't very good.
Yeah.
The English classes they didn't enjoy. They had a harsh teacher. Maybe they didn't like the work.
Yeah, maybe they were reading books that they couldn't relate to.
Yeah, or books they didn't get into enough. Like the teacher didn't necessarily show them the meaning in it enough and how it connected and why it was important. But I've always tried to stress to my students that like critical writing and critical thinking are related and they're basically indistinguishable and so when you say you're not a good writer, do you really think you're not a good thinker? Because I think most people would not say that about themselves as readily as they say that they're not a good writer. It's usually that they haven't found the thing that they're passionate about.
Yeah, maybe the subjects they're writing about, they're not interested in.
The thing that they're writing, maybe the style or the subject matter, but they're passionate about something, and they like to, at the very least, think about something. There's some things that they are passionate about, and therefore they need to write freely. Free writing is an exercise that you can try. It's basically like putting your pen to paper and forcing yourself to write without stop for, let's say, 10 minutes. And it's a great way to unclog, to free your mind and write in free association, whatever comes into your mind. And you don't need to show anybody this thing, right? It's just for you. It's a great writer's block, de-blocker thing. And it's just a good metaphor for just write what you want. And Certainly creative writing is like that, and that's one of the reasons creative writing is so awesome, because you get to write what you want, and it might be a good way to get people to fall in love with writing. I haven't tried that as a assignment, but
Free
I'm thinking
writing.
about it. No, free writing, yes, but I'm saying
Choose what topic you want to write about.
I'm saying creative writing,
Oh, okay,
like
okay.
a creative writing assignment. I haven't tried that yet, but that might be something I try maybe for people who are being really, just
Maybe hard on themselves.
really, really hard on the idea of writing anything, or that they suck at writing, because I think it's just that academic writing that they're really talking about.
Yeah, my favorite thing to work on with students is personal statements. Academic essays have a very structured way to them. Personal statements, they have structure, but there's more freedom there.
Mm-hmm.
So the writing flows better sometimes. It's more easily flows, and it's more descriptive.
Mm.
And they get to put part of themselves in it. So I think that's what, I don't know, that's just, for me, it's rewarding.
Putting more of yourself in writing, I think that's a good, just like a general idea that would make writing more interesting. It's like see what speaks to you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Bye.
Next time on the Gymnog Pod, fingers crossed, a former classmate of mine during the MFA program I attended in the early 2010s. I hesitate naming guests because sometimes things fall through, but I will say this. I am scheduling these about once every month. I am a one-man show, and so this takes a lot of time from my schedule. So your support is greatly appreciated in the form of comments, reviews, likes, follows, subscribes, and so on. Music for Gymnog Pod, provided by Marcos de la Guagua. Guagua is spelled G-U-A-G-U-A. Art by Seco1844. Seco is S-E-K-O. My website, which contains news, bios, social media links, a bibliography, a blog, a podcast page, and a press page, is jamesnoguera.com. Noguera is N-O-G-U-E-R-A. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Gymnog. That's J-I-M-N-O-G. Or you can support the show on patreon.com/Gymnog. And thank you for your interest.